This is the Carson City Cultural Commission meeting. We will call to order and get on roll call.
Chair Drysdale,
Here.
Vice Chair Flakes, Commissioner Casto, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Horton, Commissioner Moore, Commissioner Dineo. A quorum is present.
Okay, and do we have any public comment? Okay, seeing none, let's go to item 5, approval of the minutes. Any discussion on the minutes before we start, before we take a vote? Okay.
I'd like to make a comment, but I don't have any corrections. It's all right.
Okay. All right, so then we'll take a motion and then a second and open up to discussion. Okay.
I wasn't either.
Okay. All right, Ms. Neo, discussion.
Amount of good for the cultural growth in Carson City. They were at the legislature, they were at the Brick, they were at the college, they were, where's the fourth one? Oh, upstairs in the courthouse. And just rotating and changing, so they all, and artists were getting exhibits, and now there's zip. That's very sad, and I hope that we can find somebody who'd be willing to take that on and keep it going, because that was a fabulous, fabulous addition to Carson. That's it.
Not agree more. All right, item 6 for discussion, the V&T Engine House Monument. Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't have to take a vote. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay. Then item 6, discussion of the V&T Engine House Monument.
Sam Flake is here. So I had proposed last meeting that we put an agenda item on to discuss this project, which is just to refresh people who may not know. The V&T Engine House is commonly referred to as a roundhouse. Colloquially, it is not round. So when people are talking about a mythical roundhouse, this is what they're talking about, which is the Virginia and Truckee Railroad's main shops, which included their machine shop, foundry, carpentry shop, and that was located on the site of where there are currently being apartments built. It was bought by a developer from the V&T in 1955, and the developer essentially let it sit and rot, and it was finally torn down in 1991, despite the protests from the city itself and many of its residents, but certainly not all. There was definitely a lot of controversy over whether the state should get involved with eminent domain kind of seizure such as that for cultural landmarks. So 30 years later, it's still an issue, and apparently the city, Kurt, bought a few arches, 2 arches worth of stone, and when I briefly worked for the city, I kept on finding it all over the place at the wells and at fire hydrants and things like that. So I know it's around. Sometimes you'll find it in people's yards. So what I wanted to talk about today was what happened to the most recent discussion, because it kind of died quietly, that there was already a plan in place to build a monument, and then it just quietly kind of died. So what I came up with while I was out on medical leave was just a drawing showing, and this will be on the public record. This is the full size here. This is a big drawing. Showing what it could look like when you cobble together the ashlar cut stone above the arches in order to do what an arch does, which is support the weight of itself, if you have just an arch by itself, it'll come crumbling down because there's no weight, no thrust going on the sides of it, the hips. So you have to have a steel structure or some kind of weight or support going along the outside. So I figured, okay, what if you build just part of the facade? Just enough. There were 11 stalls, you need 2 or 1, 3.5, whatever. And then you have these extensions out like wings. And then those are supported, by steel. It could look like the cribbing that you would use in order to build an arch, like what I've done on a brick oven. That's called a center. You would normally do that out of wood. I didn't draw the centering parts, but you could make it look like it was being under construction, under deconstruction. There are pictures during demolition of showing how they propped like a forklift under the arch and then had a center that they had so that they could save the arches and then demolish the rest of it. So this interpretive art is kind of showing the engine house partially as it was built. You're showing what it looks like during demolition, but you're also inferring possible reconstruction. So that's up to the beholder. That's something that maybe Carson City residents and visitors ought to think about. Is it something worth holding on to? Is it worth rebuilding? Is it worth just letting it die? What do we do with our special things that we like about Carson City? So I wanted to hear from Public Works, I guess that's you, what it was that that happened with that previous proposal.
Yeah, thank you, Darren Schultz, Public Works Director. Yeah, that was a very thorough background narrative. The project has been around since the arch was demolished. We, as the city, we took ownership of 2 arches, partial arches, not full arches. And we've been holding on to those stones in our corporate yard ever since. The project has ebbed and flowed over the decades. And this last go around was, let's try to do something with those. Let's really look at it and try to come up with a plan to move it forward. So it was pretty in-depth design and effort, not only to figure out a way to stand the arches up, to make them accessible, but also where to place them in our community. Pretty deep, pretty extensive look at it. In the end, the location, it was decided that it would be in Mills Park, and it would be on the alignment of the previous actual V&T where the railroad went through. So it would stand there in that location along the alignment. And then the second part proved to be the more difficult part is how to recreate this in a way that the public could enjoy, but most importantly, be safe. And iteration after iteration after iteration, that just proved elusive to us. And we couldn't figure out a way to build 2 free or a freestanding arch, maybe the shape of an M, 2 together, where it could be safe to just be a standalone type of a monument. We got masons involved from several states away, and just looked at, different options of ways to do this. Really, if you look at the drawing that you have there, we don't have all of these column sections in existence. Currently, we don't have those sections. So we have these arch stones over the top, and then we have pieces of these on either side, but we don't have a complete set. So one thought was, well, just do one arch and use pieces from the other one to kind of complete it. But really the problem from a safety perspective is figuring out a way to secure the arch. They're very heavy, very tall and big, and to make sure that it's not gonna fall over, fall down, hurt somebody, and then secure it in such a way that you don't take so much away from the original feeling of the sandstone, where you have this steel showing and taken away from it. So anything is possible is what we told the Board of Supervisors, but it started to get really, really expensive. And the last estimate that we had was just under $900,000 to put this back up in a safe manner. And it was at that point where it was like, we're going to put this project on hold. Thank you for all the work. It won't be lost. It will be used. And in the future, we may revisit it. So really what I've heard since then is just some ideas thrown about of maybe we don't stand the arch up. Maybe we lay the arch down and it becomes like a bench, and you sit on it, but it's there, and then the interpretive signs, that sort of thing. So there's different stuff batted around, and we're holding on to the stone, and we'll see where it goes, but that's the current status. So, take any questions? Sure.
As we're going down, and you've got the overpasses, and you've got that one set of overpasses where they have something that looks just like this, only it's going up, slanted up the side. Why couldn't you do that and just buffer it underneath?
Yeah, I suppose you could kind of lay it on that overpass. So we don't control that. That's obviously
No, but I'm
state
saying if you
controlled.
put
But
it in Mills Park, couldn't you just recreate that same
yeah,
feeling
you
so
could
it's not standing up?
build a slope and
Yeah.
then lay it on there.
Lay it on the slope.
Yeah, that's an idea. That's an idea. The direction we were given with the project that we had was recreate these arches stood up. We want people to walk underneath, and that's the project we pursued. And that's the project we got kind of, it got complicated and it got really expensive. And so that project was stopped. That doesn't mean there's not opportunity for other variations of a project.
Other question, are there not any stonemasons around, or people who do, work for cemeteries that we could go to them and bended knee and ask for some help in terms of the cost of this thing?
We did that. There's a really, really good stone mason out just in Mound House that does remarkable work, and he helped us a lot with the design and how to make it work. Spent a lot of time, came and looked at all of the stones we had, tested them, really did a lot of work of trying to figure out how to make a project out of this. And back to the original concept of it being a freestanding arch, he couldn't help us in the end figure out a way. One of the last iterations that came was build a steel arch made out of steel, anchored in the ground, and then take this stone and cut an inch off of all the stone, and then fabricate that onto this steel arch. So it would look original, but underneath these would just be 1 inch thick of the stone that gets glued up there. But of course, you lose a lot of the original feel and thought behind it if you were to do something like that. And yeah,
If you sloped it, you could put a thingy that talks all about it, and people would read it and look at it. And, I mean, it really is attractive, and I think it's a great idea, Sam.
I wish I could say it was my idea.
Oh. But sorry we can't do it.
Sam Flake is here. So what I neglected to mention was that the doors here that I drew, the original doors were wood. They look like castle doors. They look like they should fold down like over a moat. It looks awesome. I've always loved it. but they're only 3 inches thick. The originals were only 3 inches thick. I mean, they're not like these humongous, thick, battering ram doors. If you built that out of steel, that's your support. That's your side-to-side sway brace, so to speak. And I didn't show it here, but the intent was if you half open either one of the doors, both of the doors, half of them, leave them like, if you design it so that you have these doors that have been swung open, that's your 3D, keep it from pushing over, right? So that's where it's weakest, right? Is along the axis of the wall. My machinist speak is coming out. So that was the idea that I had. Was that ever discussed? Was prop open these imaginary doors? They're not imaginary if you built them, right? If you make new doors that acts as your structure, was that ever talked about?
No, I see your point. If you made the doors like out of steel or something, then you're creating a 90-degree angle. So in terms of support, tipping over, I can see where that could be, that could be helpful. That certainly would solve part of the problem of making it stable. You still have the overhead stones that you would, to secure. And we talked about maybe trying to drill put a rod through them and thread them through a rod and stack them and keep them there. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not possible. It is. It just started to get really, really expensive, and we put it out to bid with one of the plans we had, and we had no bidders, even though we had talked to several masons as far away as San Francisco, and nobody was even interested at that point. So then we felt like, well, our design is too complicated. Let's try to simplify it. But then the structural engineer said, I don't want any part of this. So to answer your questions, I do not think we considered all and every sort of an option on this, but it got to be enough. We were spending enough money on design and planning and trying to figure out some stuff to where it was just, we were directed to pause. And so,
What would kickstart it up again?
from our perspective, it would be a direction from the Board of Supervisors saying this has real community interest, and maybe scrap the idea of standing arches and look at a different way of doing it and see if that could be, I don't know if it could be incorporated into Mills Park. They're master planning that project, and could it go out there and maybe even close to where we were planning to have it possibly. So I think that's probably the next step to, if it was to be considered again, would come that way.
Well, if it were up to me, I would park it right in the middle of the parking lot of these stupid apartments being built right over here. But that's just me. That's what I want. I probably can't have it, but that's what I want. Last thing, did anybody ever talk about concrete that's stained to sandstone? The sandstone powder. Have you ever used that?
Build it out of concrete and then stain it to look this way?
Yeah.
No, I just think they really wanted the actual stone to be used
Yeah.
and not the replica, because we had saved the stone.
Right. Me too.
But that would be a much easier solution, guaranteed. It's just not going to be, it's going to be fake.
Could you do a hybrid where you have arches, but you don't have the parapet? Do the parapet in concrete, where you can mesh in your steel, your rebar, your pre-stressed rebar, and make it, put in your ashlar cut stones the way that they would have laid. This was slave labor. It was, prison labor that was doing this. That look, filling in the pieces, as it were. You can make your own pieces. I've done it at home. The powder, I'm a believer. You can't tell the difference. That's the only reason I bring it up is you explain to people that, okay, this part is real, this part is fake. but you work it in such a way so that you're able to come up with a compromise in order to build it, using those old and new techniques. Maybe you and I can get together after this, and I can email you. Maybe we can start a dialogue, because this is a project that I think shouldn't die. It's been 30 years. Don't assume that the young people don't care, because we do care. I tell my kids all the time about this amazing thing that we've lost here, and they get it.
Yeah.
And I think that their peers should get it.
Yeah. No, I think, I mean, you have some ideas that we did not consider, but that wasn't based off of the direction we were given. It wasn't a hybrid or
Sure.
some fake. So could that be done? Absolutely. But again, that's direction that isn't made by me.
Sure.
to re-get the project going again. So if that's the direction that, is made and the Board of Supervisors agree to it and a funding source is established, I believe that there was redevelopment funds that were earmarked to go towards this, which have very likely been moved to a different project. That doesn't mean there's not other funds there that could be used, but that's the process that kind of has to
Right.
go through. And if there's enough interest in it, obviously the Board of Supervisors are interested and they direct us.
Okay, I know I said that was my last question. Now here's my real last question. So I've been to the corporate yard. I know the corporate yard. It looks like a lot of space to me. You might disagree, because you might have things earmarked, for the amount of space that's there. Can you lay out a plan of however much space you need, like say 50 feet by, how tall is this? 15 feet? You earmark, this space, this is going to be for laying this out. We'll build as much as we can over the course of however long it takes to just lay it down. You can mark each stone, where it would go. And then when it became time to erect it, stand it up, you could do that when you have a site. Is there a part of the property that you can let sit for, say, 5 years?
So we've already done that. We've
Okay,
already.
I've seen the pictures, yeah.
Yeah. So we've already done that. The stones have been marked, and so we know what we have. So when we went into this design, we were able to give to them a blueprint of, this is what we have now. These are the pieces that we don't have, that we would have to figure out how to make or whatever. So we did that. We laid it out. We marked it. That's all been done.
So you don't need to start over and start adding pieces to it.
Not until we're ready for a project. I
Okay.
mean, even when we brought two stone masons out to the yard to look at the stone, and they moved some around and set it next to each other just to feel it, but it wasn't, they had no requirement to lay it all. And
Okay.
that, yeah.
We have enough information to work off of this is what I work off of, is the Library of Congress, the Historic American Building Survey. This is one of my favorite documents. This is all accessible to the public, sorry, Anna, I didn't print this out. And thanks again for working with me for the last minute. Anna's great. Any other comments from Kurt?
I'm gonna,
What an awesome entrance to a city hall that would be. Just a thought.
That's a thought.
If you could incorporate it into a building, like into a wall, that's the
That's the
secret.
secret.
That's very doable. It's where we ran into problems was trying to get it a standalone monument type of thing. And again, can be done. It just takes money. But put it into a wall or something, and it's a different story.
Barb Deneo again for the record. In your further conversations, think about that. Putting it in an angle might be, people like looking at things like that and reading the history of it. And I've seen that a lot in various places, but it's something to consider, I think.
For sure.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thanks.
Yeah. Appreciate the feedback.
I think this is a great, oh, Bethany Drysdale for the record, great discussion, and Sam, I'm glad that you pressed for this. It sounds like it's something that maybe we can continue, and maybe there's some design concepts or brainstorm ideas that we could look at as a board as well and recommend to the Board of Supervisors. I would just love to see this continue, and I love the idea of being incorporated into a building. That's brilliant. But- Okay, any other discussion on this item? All right, well, that was for discussion only, so we won't vote, but now on to 6B, a discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation to the city manager. The Commerce Leadership Institute class, that's a mouthful, accepting the donation of this piece of art.
Anna Freeman for the record. Yes, the art proposed for donation is a sculpture titled Aster by local artist Seth Johnson. As you know, the leadership class from the Carson City Chamber of Commerce, class of 2024, actually, collected donations as part of its class project renovating and repurposing the amphitheater and the surrounding area in Mills Park within Sealy Loop. This includes a mosaic tile mural created by hundreds of community members, a metal artwork piece created by Carson High School students, and the sculpture titled Rocky the Squirrel by artist Jeff Schoenberg have all already been installed as part of this project, along with updated landscaping, painting, and installation of concrete pads for future artwork. If the city approves acceptance of this donation, the leadership class plans to purchase Aster to be installed with using remaining donated funds. And the donation proposal material is all included in your packet. I can go through it if you want, or just take any questions.
I think we've all looked at it. Or you
Yep.
have a question?
I have a comment, actually. I think it's fine and all that, but it needs to be stamped by a structural engineer, make sure our bolts are not gonna rot off in 5 years and flop over onto somebody. So make sure that gets taken care of, and I'd be behind it otherwise. And there you have it.
Sam Flake is here. You bring up a good point. That reminds me. This sure looks climbable. Is it supposed to be climbable?
Anna Freeman for the record. I believe it is structurally sound and safe to climb, but for liability reasons, it would be deterred and should be appreciated as artwork and as seen here, like a photo opportunity to
Well,
walk through it.
You know what will happen, though.
Oh.
Yeah,
The artist said that it would not, it won't fall over or anything.
Well, let's make sure.
It would be sound, yes.
Barb Dineo for the record. Just for your information, when you look at the roundabout, it used to be reversed, that circle, because it's a silver coin, and kids were on the ridges, they were climbing them, so they flipped it, and now they have the Washoe etchings on it instead, because no matter what we say or do, there's kids gonna be climbing this sucker because it's there and fun and interesting.
Well, I'll repeat what I told my son just today. I was showing him this. As soon as you put a sign up that says "Do not climb," you're gonna climb it. Sure, I'll climb it. I won't climb it.
Okay, well, the item is to accept this donation, so I would entertain a motion for that, or is there other discussion?
I would motion to accept the donation.
With the caveat that it is stamped by a
Yes.
structural engineer.
Yes.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Number 7, staff update.
Yes. If you haven't been following along all the updates on Facebook at Carson City Arts Culture or on the website carson.org/arts, you may not know, but The Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department continues to work hard providing opportunities for the community. This summer, I taught weekly visual arts classes to the kiddos at Camp Carson entering kinder, first, or second grades. I would have loved to teach them all, just started with the young ones as I didn't have time to get to everybody. And hosted a Christmas in July ornament making activity for all ages as part of the U.S. Capitol Christmas Tree Project. Park staff have installed the musical flower playground equipment, which was donated by the Carson Douglas Early Childhood Advisory Council. So little ones can play there's little attached mallets, and each petal of the flower plays a different note. I worked with a small group from Juvenile Services to paint some replacement tiles for our tile art in the park. For Stan is that piece. There's a little bit of damage, so we have some backups and replacement tiles ready to be installed as needed. And again, if anyone is interested in being a contract teacher, a volunteer, or a sponsor of the Arts and Culture Program, they can contact me via email.
Okay, excellent. Any questions? Nope. All right. Comments, announcements from members of the commission? Yes.
On behalf of the Brewery Arts Center, I have a lot of announcements for stuff that's coming up. This coming Saturday is South Celebration to be moving forward Nevada Pride, which will be taking place on the BAC campus from 12 to 6. It'll be super fun. We have live music on 2 different stages, food trucks, the whole kit and caboodle. The following week, on Saturday the 20th, we have Carson City Music Mural. This is the 3rd annual Murals and Music Festival. We have 12 new murals going up around downtown over between the 15th and the 20th. And then Saturday, we're going to do a concert in the parking lot kind of thing to celebrate that. And then we have Mark Twain Days, which was sadly not allowed to be on Carson Street anymore, but we'll be at the BAC campus on October 18th. Well, from the 16th through the 18th, but the 18th is our big day. We'll do the art festival, the concerts, and everything like that. And we'll have our lowbrow social at the Nevada State Museum. So we have a lot of stuff coming up, and we don't meet again until December. So we have Tamale Festival and something else in December. I can't remember. There's so many things. But anyway, that's what's coming up in the next few weeks over here.
It's a lot.
Pam, anything from you? Okay. Any comments, anything? I just want to say, Bethany Drysdale, for the record, you mentioned the National Christmas Tree. I just think this is really, really exciting for Nevada. It's cool for students that have been able to contribute ornaments. My family's in Oregon, and I happened to be there one year when the tree was from Oregon, and it was so cool just to see your home state and represented by all the counties. So I want to plug the essay contest that the National Forest is having. A 4th grader can win a trip to see the tree and be the official lighter of the tree.
Oh,
So
how neat.
yeah, so if you know 4th graders, have 4th graders, know teachers, spread the word on that, because that is very exciting, and I would love a 4th grader from this area to win. So that is very exciting, and I don't know that we have any future agenda, or I don't have any future agenda items. Does anybody have anything that they want to for sure get on the agenda for next time?
Sam Flake is here. If I can start a dialogue with Public Works about the engine house project, I will certainly let Anna know, and I will try to be more dutiful about getting my materials in on time and making her not rush around because of my procrastination. Again, thank you. That is my problem, not your problem. Other than that, I mean, that can be, forthcoming.
Let me jump in on that for a second. It sounded to me like at some level, there's got to be some communication with the Board of Supervisors or with the mayor or with the city manager or something like that to get this moving forward. In general, I would strongly recommend against having design sessions and kind of having the board do a, run a project. If you wanted, if the board were inclined to have somebody spearhead that, you could have assign that to somebody on the board who could then report back. But it's not really, having design meetings and that sort of stuff at a public meeting isn't the best use of the public forum.
So
How's
is that to say that we should come up with a design ahead of time, then bring it before the Board of Supervisors and they can say yes or no, and then go from there?
Yes.
Right. I think
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
the next steps, and I'm your attorney, I'm by no means a project manager. The next steps might be to identify some proposals, and then to talk with city hall, the city manager, the deputy city manager, the mayor, to see if those are proposals that they would be interested and willing to get behind. And if they are, then they could certainly bring that before the Board of Supervisors as a proposal on how to move forward, or on authorizing moving forward with it. If it's one thing to say if you need city funding, then it's going to have to come before the board at a very early stage. If you don't need as much funding from the city and you just need a space from the city to put it, you can maybe come at a later stage once things are a little bit better, well developed. Does that make any sense?
So is that to say that we should ask for the money first and then design it, or come up with a design and then ask for the money to support that design?
You should first meet with the city manager and find out if they're interested in pursuing it at all. And at that point, it can go forward from there.
All right.
That's the simplest solution to the problem.
I think if you put together like a comprehensive list of ideas, like if we could go this direction, or we could go this direction, or this direction, and you put it in front of the city manager and say, how do you feel? Like, would you support this, like moving forward? Then you can, you give them a visual the way that we did
Right.
tonight.
They want
but-
to see something.
Yes, but even just describing it, you're very good at that. If you spearheaded that and you went there, then we could get them, to possibly bring it forward to the Board of Supervisors. I think that's probably where it needs to start.
Good direction.
It's not this commission taking it forward, though. It's Sam.
Right.
Forward.
Right.
Okay. Sure, that works for me.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, it just triggered something, not triggered. Valerie Moore for the record, and I don't know if this is relevant for this group, but given that we do granting for special events, maybe it is. Maybe for the next agenda, if we could add on something where we could, I don't know, solidify or at least approach the city with some sort of plan to define the rules of what a special event is. And maybe that's too big for this group, and maybe this is a different conversation, but I do special permits all year long for many, many events, and it is not consistent at all. And it's a thing that anyway, so just throwing it out there. I don't know if it's a subject for this board or not, but if so, I would like that to be on the next agenda.
Bethany Drysdale for the record. I wasn't aware of that there's different definitions or how things fall into a special event. And you make a really good point. We are giving money to special events. And if we don't have a consistent idea of what that means.
the city gives very little money to special events.
Yes.
But even if we do, there are grants given, but it is not a concise. It is not a consistent process, and it's caused me some problems over this summer. And we've done like 7 special events this summer. And I'm very consistent. I work well with the city. So it's a point of, I would like, if you gave me a rule book, I would be ecstatic about what that would be.
I don't believe it's within the purview of our committee to define what that is.
That's
You would
fair.
need to meet with the planning director and have a discussion with them
Okay,
about
that-
the
I
current-
wasn't sure.
current rules and how they define them.
And I was gonna echo Kurt's comment a little bit. If you want to, stop by after the meeting, and I'm not sure if planning is, I mean, planning seems to me to be off the top of my head the correct group to talk to, but I'm not exactly sure which projects you're doing or where you're getting the grants from.
I literally email people with different titles every single event, so I don't necessarily know the answer either.
Okay.
Okay.
Final public comment? Do we have any public comment? No? Okay. I always forget this. Do we need a motion to adjourn or can we just adjourn?
You do not need a motion to adjourn. You as the chair can just adjourn.
Okay, we'll adjourn. Everybody have a great night.